And we are live. Welcome to Best Ball with Bindles. We are on the balcony again tonight. My girlfriend's studying for the bar exam. You can see her right behind me. She is deep in the weeds of studying. So we have a very special guest tonight, Ben Gretch of Stealing Signals, of Ship Chasing. He's the slow draft king. We were just talking before the stream. He can talk for hours, and we're not going to go too long, but definitely we're super excited for this stream. So hop in with us, and we will be drafting very soon. Let's get going. Coach, Gretch, how are you guys doing so far this week? Gretch, we were talking about the Madden generation a second ago before we hopped on the stream, but how's your week been so far, and how you feeling about doing a draft tonight? Oh, I think you're...
I'm muted. I'm feeling great about drafting. Anytime I can draft, I feel great about doing the live drafts. You mentioned the slow draft king. I live where I'm in a banned state. I'm not allowed to draft. It's breaking the rules where I get to participate. No, I mean, not breaking rules, but I get to participate in these live drafts with other people is always a fun thing for me. Sorry, I'm sending out a tweet to mention that I'm jumping on with you guys now, but yeah, no, I mean, it's always exciting to do this, do the live drafting, all that stuff. Week's been good. I did a 3-hour solo stream earlier today. Been pushing that stuff over on my channel. But yeah, excited to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Coach, what's going on, brother? Love the shirt as always. You're always bringing the great shirt vibes. What's going on?
It's been a great week, man. I got to see Goose in concert on a Monday night, which is a great night to go see a band play. So that was good. We've got Ben Gretch on the show, so feels like G Week. You know, we've got Gretch and Goose. Like we're rolling, man. This is good stuff.
So yeah, Gretch, I've been really enjoying the slow draft streams. It's actually hilarious because I am also I'm a best ball streamer and I currently can't draft where I am. And so I'm trying to figure out some like paperwork and stuff, but I should be able to slow draft soon. So I'll be in the similar boat. I might actually be the second slow draft streamer here pretty soon. But yeah,
everyone's doing it. It's the new niche, man. Everyone's doing it. Me and you.
Yeah, it's just 2 out of the like 5,000 best ball streamers now. But
everybody's doing it. Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoy like just being able to like because when you're in a fast draft, it's still fun. It's a different energy, but the slow drafts are really nice to be able to just talk through your whole thoughts and really dive deep into stuff, which you don't get a lot of that, right? Like I guess if it's a podcast, but it is a little bit different when you actually have like the picks in front of you. So yeah, really been enjoying those. So yeah, we did have a couple of things that we want to talk about before we hopped in. The first one kind of was something you're known for is kind of like diving and looking at like kind of league-wide trends and like the bigger picture stuff. What do you think, if anything, so far, like are some of the big like league-wide trends or stuff that is going to influence the season and really like define the 2024 season going into this year?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the fantasy football community probably is still not waiting enough. It's been heavily talked about now, but the shift that started really in 2021 and the 2022 and 2023 scoring environments being down, defenses really intentionally taking away explosive plays. There was that great podcast series on The Athletic last summer called The Play Callers with the Sean McVay coaching tree, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, all those guys, Mike McDaniel. They talked to Robert Saleh as well, who was obviously the defensive coordinator with the 49ers and worked with Shanahan for a long time. And what they're trying to do on the defensive side of the ball, and Saleh, said it right out. Like, we're trying to take away explosive plays. We don't want teams to score on 3 plays on us. We want to make them score in 8 plays or 10 plays, make them move the ball down the field. I still see all the conversation about like, Patrick Mahomes. Oh, he's a check down artist now. And it's like, I mean, the low ADOT stuff is literally because of the way that defenses are playing. The story with Mahomes is the volume is the teller. Like a lot of people put Mahomes per attempt stats next to Russell Wilson's like late last year. It drove me nuts. It happened like 4 or 5 times.
What the fuck?
And it's like 100 more dropbacks for Mahomes. And so, yeah, like Russ is playing off a run game and they're like protecting and hiding the quarterback in that offense. And then they're doing play action, which gets you into, more efficient passing situations. And they're doing those types of things off of it. But it's a run and like short pass first offense. And then the Mahomes offense situation is like, we're going to drop you back every time, even though they're in these cover 2 shells. They're putting all these DBs on the field. It's not a passing situation. We're going to still drop you back every time because we trust you to always make the smart decision and take the underneath high percentage throw, which a lot of quarterbacks can't do. They end up forcing. It's difficult for quarterbacks to rein it in every snap and underneath throw. It was actually, I think, great quarterback play by Mahomes for most of the year last year. It didn't show up in the stats necessarily, but I mean, they had terrible receivers. And clearly they built an offense that was good enough to then go on and win the Super Bowl. They had a great defense last year too. But I think all of that stuff, what the defenses are trying to do, how they're attacking the different quarterbacks and the different offenses is still really important to understand. And then the big question will be this year will be the same as it was going into last year. Will the offense have a counterpunch? And we all kind of thought there would be one last year, and there just really wasn't. I mean, the scoring was still down the whole first half of the year. It was like, man, it's still tough to find an answer here. But it did seem to level off a little bit midseason. Like in 2022, we had some really extreme team level trends as teams were like trying to figure things out. Like Chicago and Atlanta both had extremely low pass volume that was like 15-year lows, both of them. The Bucks and the Chargers were both like among the like top 5 pass volume over like 15 seasons, all in the same year. You had like really high end and really low end. So teams were like, well, this is what the defense are doing. Some teams are saying we're going to throw into it every time. Some teams are saying we're going to run into it every time. The trends around the league, those types of trends they were more normal, more, regressing more towards the mean last year. There wasn't as many like crazy outliers, which I think is like probably indicative of offenses starting to understand like there's certain things that we do in certain spots. We have answers for certain looks that like in 2022, I don't even think they were like, we don't know what to do. You're putting like too many DBs on the field every time. You're rolling coverages every time. We don't know. Like we have to run into this front. And now I think they're like willing to throw into pass, like formerly pass looks that they would have ran into. And so there's a lot of like evolution that's still taking place. What that means for quarterback ADOT's probably a lot lower, underneath passing still. Cause I mean, they are taking away the big plays. But I think, like, for instance, with wide receivers, I think like a lot of the wide receivers are misunderstood. Gabe Davis is one of the most misunderstood players in fantasy football. I don't like to couch for this guy or anything, but he is a high ADOT player who, if you look at his stats the last 3 years, his yards per target have stayed fine. His touchdown rate stayed fine. Once the target comes to him, his after the target efficiency is fine. He's a good ball tracker. He wins the ball in the air. He's a good downfield receiver of the football. What's dropped off like a ton over the last 3 years is his targets per route run. He's just out there running these deep routes. And part of that is the defenses are taking that stuff away, and Josh Allen and the rest of the offense is throwing underneath. Part of it's that he's probably not great at winning downfield against some of these coverages. That's fine. But they're going to be deep receivers that are just basically taken away because that's what the defense wants to do. They want to take away those explosives. And so, I mean, that's the kind of stuff where, like, I don't think Gabe Davis is like bad. And I think a lot of people just think he's terrible. And it's like, I mean, the thing he does really well is the thing that defenses are trying to take away right now.
It's a bad time to be Gabe Davis in the league.
It's a bad time to be Gabe Davis. You do not want to be Gabe Davis in this NFL.
Yeah. So I'm just interested because it's like, I don't know when you were saying like, oh, people thought there would be a kind of a counterpunch last year and it hasn't happened yet. So it's like, we're kind of assuming it's going to happen, but I don't really know what it's going to be. Like, do you have any like inkling of like, what do you think? Like, obviously like run game is a little bit going into it, and it's been happening a little bit, but I don't think teams have fully kind of transitioned over to doing that. I know some people have talked about maybe more 2 tight end sets or more heavier sets to kind of take advantage of that situation. I don't know if you have any answer to that, or if it's just kind of like we don't really know. Yeah.
It's something that I didn't really like. I didn't see enough like good answers last season because I mean the scoring was still down. I don't think offensive coordinators had enough good answers really, right? But it's changing and it's interesting. Again, I go back to that play caller series where Saleh was saying all that stuff, and then the Sean McVay quote on the other side that I've mentioned on podcasts a few times. But he's like, we like when defenses play perfect defense because then we know how to attack it. We were talking before the show about how we all grew up playing Madden and everything, and it's like, oh, I know when I see a cover two, like I want to run a seam route or something. You know, there's certain ways to break certain rules and certain defenses when you understand them. But what defenses are doing is disguising coverage. They're being they're trying to bait throws into certain zones, and they're leaving, like we're showing this and then intentionally leaving that. And it's the kind of thing that was like originally something that would only appear in certain games, but like Bill Belichick was considered a mastermind for the way he did that to Peyton Manning in some of those playoff games when New England and Indy would play early on. It was he's showing certain looks and then he's throwing and he's disguising coverages, and Peyton Manning, who studies the film, is sure he has one look and he's getting another look post snap, and now Ty Law's picking him off again. And it's like it was, you know, but that's what every defense is doing now, is what it seems like. And so in terms of the answers, I mean, I don't know that I don't know that the NFL offenses really had great answers last year. I don't know that I have a great answer. I do think it is, you know, a thing where the explosive plays are not going to just come back when the whole focus of the defense is to try to take them away. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, that's just going to regress. And I don't know how it's going to regress when that's what the defenses are trying to take away. I mean, I think absolutely. You want to, and I think it's a little bit dependent on the offense. I think teams do that more against like a Patrick Mahomes, a more lethal quarterback. I've seen some stuff where like the running quarterbacks are facing more single high and they aren't getting as many of those looks because you got to bring a guy down in the box. You have to be concerned about maybe Anthony Richardson running. So maybe a deep threat with Anthony Richardson has a better chance to actually win downfield because they can't go into these deep shells as much. So yeah, maybe that's a plus for an AD Mitchell versus, a deep threat in whatever, a Mahomes offense or something, which, I mean, I'm not even necessarily out on a deep threat in a Mahomes offense because then you have a really high pass rate and you have a really efficient quarterback. And that's, I mean, so I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. But like in the Mahomes offense, you know they're going to be in deep shells so much that I think that boosts Isaiah Pacheco, for example. Like they're going to go to the run game at times. They know they have to move the ball down the field, and he gets to run against like the most favorable. I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is a particularly great running back, but I think that it works out pretty favorably for him because he gets to run against some really nice run looks very often. Like teams aren't trying to stop Isaiah Pacheco when they game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs.
He's the last thing on their mind. Yeah,
right. They just don't. They're like, we have to find a way to stop Patrick Mahomes. If Isaiah Pacheco beats us, that's fine. But in reality, sometimes they're like, we'll just let Isaiah Pacheco get his. Like how some NBA defenses are like. I mean, that's how the Packers beat him last year. They gave him. Isaiah Pacheco ran for 100 yards, but it made both teams only have like 7 possessions in that game in Lambeau Field last year, which was it's astronomically low, like total possession volume. If you go look at the possession chart in that game, like they have on the Pro Football Reference box score page, it's down towards the bottom. And it's like fascinating. Every drive is like 10 plus plays and like super long on both sides. And it's like, that's what the Packers wanted to do. They wanted to shorten the possessions like those teams in March Madness are trying to do in basketball to get the upsets. Yeah. Slow down the game. Right. And then ratchet up the variance. And like, if we can just outscore you on 7 possessions, like we'll let Isaiah Pacheco run for 100 yards. That's what we want to happen. Actually, we just hold you to a couple field goals, which they did. And we convert touchdowns on our drives, which they did. We'll beat you. And then they went ahead and upset the Chiefs in a really low possession game playing that way. So there's some teams that are like, I don't even care if Isaiah Pacheco runs for 100 yards. So, I mean, that's like, those are the answers that I come to is like, what are the defenses trying to do against these teams? The Chiefs are a great example because they're really extreme. And that's the defense that's like, we'll literally let we'll let your running back run for 100 yards. There's obviously like waves of this, but I think the pocket passers are going to be facing more, deep safety looks and trying to take away the deep passing. But again, it's going to be like a case by case thing. It really is tricky to come with like a full answer.
What do you like? Do you see the Dolphins? Because they love shoving the ball down the field. Like, do you see them kind of what do you think is the next adjustment that they could kind of pick up to get some more late season success?
I wonder about the late season stuff. I think they're a really fascinating offense because they do such a good job of getting the ball into the hands of the guys they want to do. Like it shouldn't be that easy for them to get
It shouldn't at all.
Tyreek Hill at 35% targets per out run, and no one else. Every other team would love to have their number one wide receiver touch the ball 35% of their routes, but Tyreek Hill is the only one that, the next highest is like 30%. It's like 5 percentage points higher. And then Jalen Waddle is like 7th in the NFL last year at like 27% in an offense where Tyreek Hill's at 35%. Like how are you that concentrated on those guys? And there's that stat that it was 2 years ago now, but the Pat Crane writes about this a lot in his walkthrough, but the deep middle of the field is a really efficient area to attack. If you break it into like the field into like 6, zones: shallow right, shallow left, shallow middle, and then deep. Deep middle is very efficient. And there was this point in 2022 that the deep middle, the league leader in deep middle targets was like Tyreek Hill. Second was Jalen Waddle, and fourth was Mike Gesicki, who was their number 3 that year. It's like the splash zone, as Corain has started calling it, for sure. And it's like, dude, 3 of the top 4 guys in the NFL are all on the same offense. How are you constantly getting to the same deep zone, the splash zone? And that's another huge staple for that McDaniel offense. They're doing things like, I don't know how he's consistently getting the players into the right spots. I don't know how he's consistently getting the ball into the right players' hands better than anyone else in the league, but he is. As far as like, can they have late season success? I mean, a big part of it for me is just like, is Tua that guy? Because I kind of wonder if it's sort of like the Sean McVay, Jared Goff stuff, where he felt like they kind of hit a wall with Goff. They needed to have a better quarterback that could diagnose stuff after the snap better. They went and got Stafford. They ended up going on winning a Super Bowl because they felt like Stafford added to all of the scheme stuff that they were.
That hit factor, yeah.
Right. Can do stuff post-snap that Goff, he felt like he couldn't do with Goff. They were, famously calling plays or calling the coverages into his helmet before the clock, the comms shut off on the play clock. And I think that's sort of what Miami's dealing with Tua a little bit. Like, he's sort of a limiting factor. I know his stats are very good. I know Miami fans are really defensive of him, but like, I think McDaniel's doing enough to elevate his efficiency in those things. I don't know what more the scheme and everything could do to elevate. Like, it's got to be the players.
There's only so much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Bindles and I were talking, like, one of our favorite things on Stealing Bananas, where you guys look at next year's ADP for the first 2 rounds. And kind of curious if you would like to share how much you kind of look into that when you're making your picks on the clock, whether it's, for best ball or in Dynasty as well. Like, how much you kind of factor that in, based on what you're looking at ahead and what you're kind of seeing on the board with ADP and, team structure and stuff like that as well.
I mean, that's why we love that exercise so much. It's sort of the whole mindset is like, because the only way a guy would go in the top 2 rounds next year is if they have a smash this season, right? And it's this mindset of who can. Sean always says it this way and has for years and years, but like, if you're taking a wide receiver in round 7 or 8, you need to be able to tell yourself a story that he can go in the 2nd round the next year. Stealing Bananas Alpha, I love that. But you're trying to tell yourself that this like 7th round receiver can be a 2nd round pick next year. That's the whole. Who's the guy that can rise that far? Who can do what Garrett Wilson did after his rookie year? I don't know why he's the first one to pop in my mind, but he was going like the 11th round next year. Even though he was playing with Zach Wilson, last year we were willing to take him at the 1-2 turn in year 2. Got a quarterback upgrade, and we're like, this guy's that good. And that's the player you want to be on the year that they're cheap before they make the huge leap. Now, it doesn't always mean that the production's massive. Garrett Wilson's a great example, but that's where you do get the huge difference-making hits, and that's sort of the whole game, whether it's Dynasty, whether it's best ball, is that the 3 or 4 players. Jacob Sanderson just had a great article in his Substack. I tweeted it out. It says one of my favorite things that I read so far this year. And one of the things he talked about is this idea that, upside is sort of everything. Like, we've talked about that in the fantasy community for years, but it's this idea that you only like the way that you win is not by stacking a bunch of small wins throughout your draft. It's not 18 small wins. It's 3 or 4 big wins. And when you get those 3 or 4 big wins, your team hits. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's the way it works. I talk about this on the weekly level all the time. People are so concerned about like having a 5 in their lineup, but if they get a 10 and they just get that double digit, they feel amazing. Those 5 points don't matter, man. The reason you win or lose in your weekly league, in your actual like home league, is the 30-point weeks. Yeah. Yes. How many 30-point weeks did you have? Did you have any at all? And that's what you should be shooting for. If it means coming with a 5 like that, that obviously those suck. Those aren't great. Like you can't be Gabe Davis. You can't have a bunch of zeros like that. That does become a problem at a certain point. But I mean, especially when you're starting to break a tie and your team's not that great, like a lot of people would do better to just push in a Gabe Davis into their lineup. Sometimes it's so funny to look at his lineup or his game log last year. The reason people hate him so much is he had 20+ point games every 3 weeks, like clockwork. And then the week after he had like 0 multiple times. And it was single digits, I think almost every time. And so it was like he'd have 2 shitty games when he was in people's lineups, and then they'd go away from him, and then he'd put up 20 again. They go back to him, and then he'd have 0 again.
Ultimate rug pull, yeah.
I mean, every time scoring on your bench and then not scoring when he's in your lineup. But that's the emotional side of it. But in terms of a profile, you could do worse than that if it's a guy that has a legitimate ceiling and is able to put up 20, 30-point games. That's what you actually want to be putting in these lineups. That's when you think about best ball, especially where the zeros don't hurt you. You want, and again, I don't think Gabe Davis is going to have that kind of scoring profile this year. I do not want the title of this video to be Gabe Davis is the key to winning Best Ball Mania 5.
A lot of Gabe Davis gas.
Way too much about Gabe Davis so far. But the idea is those guys that can put up the ceiling weeks, they're the ones that really drive whether your team's successful or not. And especially, again, in best ball where the 0 points don't matter. The 0-point games don't matter as long as you have the depth to cover it. So yeah, in terms of that type of thing about next year's first, second round, all those types of things, I want the guys that, at every point that I think can make huge leaps in next season, be the dudes, the huge breakout stars, whether that's on a weekly level, whether that's on a season level. I want the big hits. We talk about this on Stealing Bananas. Small miss, big hit profiles are the ones that we want to target. I think people get way too caught up in small miss or big or small hit, and they're doing the median game, and they're like, well, his price and his projection are a round off, and like that just doesn't matter. I mean, if they're a round too cheap or a round too expensive relative to what their like median projection is, what ultimately matters is the 5th percentile tail outcome on really on either side. How much zero floor do they have? How much massive boom potential is the big side of it?
Yeah, how do you weigh? Because like that's something I think I definitely lean more toward. Like I think you were talking about on a podcast recently about how like first couple of years of playing fantasy football, you were just kind of like you're saying, like just get this consistent 10 points every week, and then eventually you evolved and you got to this point where like, okay, It doesn't really matter. In terms of best ball, like how do you weigh kind of the median projection, like whatever ETR projections and everything versus kind of what you're saying, where it's like, I really have to understand like the talent profile, the scheme, the kind of the team situation, like everything else going into it. Like, how do you weigh those two things? Because I feel like it's always a battle, right, between those.
It is, and it's actually something that is evolving over time, where the market is so clearly prioritizing the upside profiles now relative to what they did 5 or 10 years ago. It was easier 5 or 10 years ago. The way I used to say it, maybe 5 years ago, is if you went and looked at projections and you looked at guys who were going, because this is where the ADP and the wisdom of the crowds would play in. The wisdom of the crowd is a powerful tool. This is why we think ADP is worth paying attention to. And you should have humility sometimes and just take the ADP value when somebody's sliding. And even if you don't love that dude, maybe just get some exposure to, maybe you're wrong, right? Maybe the crowd is right and you're wrong. There's more minds that are going into an ADP than just your one analysis of that player. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have any stances or any, strong opinions or anything like that. But that is an important factor. And so what I was going to say is the way that I used to, what I was going to say before I interrupted myself, well, this is what I do on all my streams like constantly, is that, if you look at a projection or, a median projection, and then what I think analysts get in trouble with is they look at that and they say, well, this guy's going around ahead of his ADP or his median projection. And that means he's just not a good bet at that price. If he would fall, 6 or 8 picks, then I could understand taking him, or a full round, then I can understand taking him. But typically the reason that guy's going around because above his projection is is not because he doesn't have or it's not because the crowd isn't aware of his projection. It's because the wisdom of the crowd's element of ADP is telling you they're outweighing, there's an outsized weight here on what they are seeing as the ceiling outcome. That part that isn't necessarily going to fit into their median projection, but it's that 5% of like, well, if everything breaks right, we think this could be a really sexy offense this year and things could really blow up. And then people are like, well, you always get these like crusty old time fantasy analysts that have been around for a really long time that will be like, well, yeah, everybody's just chasing the hype and this isn't going to work out. And then sometimes it doesn't work out and they love to rub that in your face after the season. And it's like, all right, but like, that's how you find the smashes. That's the crowd is on it. Like people are aware. That's when somebody is going ahead of their projection, it's typically a pretty good like sign that this is where ceiling exists. And then when they're going behind it, like Deontay Johnson projects a lot better than his 7th round price tag right now. So much so that I'm like, I got to draft him because it's like 3-4 rounds too much. Like this guy's like, there's nobody within a mile of him that projects for 150 targets. And this guy's probably going to get 150 targets this year. But I mean, he's been a massive targeter on a per out rate every year of his career. I just don't understand his price. But part of it, him for Jarvis Landry's whole career, everyone would always say this guy's constantly going lower than where he finishes, but it's because people were saying he doesn't have any ceiling, right? Like we know that he projects better than this, but he's a small win player. And if you try to just stack all these small win players, you're not going to build a very good team. That doesn't mean those guys are completely undraftable. I just said I have drafted some Deontay Johnson, but you want to make sure, because especially in best ball, you can't make roster moves. It's easier in season long where you can cut the misses. Right? You can just take all swings on cut the misses and replace and try to make trades or whatever. In best ball, there is an advantage to the small win or the medium win, like projection-based play in small doses. I talked about it today where like, I don't think all 18 of your picks have to be swings at pure upside, but I would think that I would be like 14 of my picks would be swings at upside and maybe like 4 would be extreme examples of value like a Deontay Johnson where I could fit that into a build. And I think he's that mispriced to his median, projection. But for the most part, when guys are, priced below a median projection, it's because the market is seeing the ADP, the wisdom of the crowds is seeing they don't have that type of ceiling. But I mean, other than the ADP, like, which is like one of the cheat codes, the other thing is just like wide range of outcomes, young players, youth, rookies, like, yeah, they have small floors. Yeah, these things don't work out. Yeah, Sky Moore happens. Yeah, Quentin Johnston happens, but so do, the hits. They also exist every year. I don't know why it's easier for me to remember the misses than the hits. And none of the hits are coming.
I feel like that's everyone. Yeah, of course.
I remember Sky Moore very well. I remember Quentin Johnston very well.
That's actually hilarious because it's when you were talking about the upside, and I'm very notably a Deontay Johnson stan. So, yeah, like it's that weird point where it's like Jordan Addison, like there's kind of that range go like a round and a half above Deontay, and Chris Godwin to a similar extent, where I'm just going to be taking these guys so much because it's like, yeah, I can build in the Dontavian Wicks later on, the Xavier Leggett later on. But if I'm just getting like in my brain 3 rounds of ADP value every single time, like I'm just going to take it. So I have a hard time not taking Deontay Johnson every draft, if I'm completely honest.
I would take more of him if he wasn't going right between JSN and Rashee Rice, who are just like really big swings that I like to take a lot of. And Rice especially is like, you wrote this on my stream today, Bindles, but like it just feels like the cheat code right now to best ball. I mean, there's people saying that he's not going to get suspended this year. I keep getting these comments that are like the court date's set for November or something. I haven't done enough research on it, but like it's not going to be a 2024 thing, which we've seen happen in the NFL with some of these situations. He seems to be now doing and saying the right things. The second incident was obviously not great, and that's when his value really cratered. But that has already been thrown out, if I'm understanding. The first car wreck is anyway. We don't need to break down the whole Rashee Rice situation, but his value absolutely cratered. This is a guy that was going to the 2-3 turn pre-draft, and I was arguing that was low. I was arguing because he had a 2+ yards per out run in a Patrick Mahomes offense. This is before the Xavier Worthy pick in the first round, but I felt like he should be right up behind Puka Nacua. That's how impressive his per route rookie season was. And he was very good in the postseason. He didn't get a full route share until week 14, but he carried that through the postseason. So we got like 8 games of it, 4 games at the end of the regular season, 4 games in the postseason. And like, looks like if he's going to be there, he's going to be this dude that starts to take some of the Travis Kelce work. If we're drafting Travis Kelce in the 4th round right now, because we're worried about age, we're worried about wearing down and everything, he's no longer a first round tight end. Rashee Rice is the guy that starts to take those short intermediate targets, whereas the Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy profiles, the motion stuff around the line of scrimmage, and then the deeper intermediate, like it's routes, shallow and deep. Yeah. And then the in between is where you get a lot of Kelce has been, living there. And that's what Rashee Rice did last year very, very well, and had the 2+ targets per out run, was very efficient, even for a low ADOT guy. I mean, if you control for his ADOT, his like yards per target, it's really impressive. You got to be really impressive for that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you're in on, I mean, I know pretty much everyone's in on Rice, but good to hear from you that
well, apparently not, because he's still going to the 7th round. I don't understand it.
I think people just have such a hard time with the suspension stuff, and just like so that's actually another question that we had, and I do want to draft in a second here, so we can talk about it while we draft. But
yeah,
that's like, I think as a just person, like, I'm willing to lean into the uncertainty of the situations, and like we had a couple examples of it, like the Cowboys backfield, like the New England offense, the Broncos offense, the Broncos running back situation. Like, people tend to shy away from those situations when it's really like, especially in best ball, when it's like you're gonna lose anyways. Like, those are really the situations you should be leaning into. So yeah, we definitely want your takes on some uncertain situations and how we can capitalize off of those. So why don't we hop in here for a second? Let me go through the chat here. We got Tyler in here. I think he just got finished off of a stream, so go check him out. Yeah, balcony streamer, only for 1 week, and then I'll be back in the bedroom. But the wifey's got to pass her exam, so that's more important than me being in the bedroom.
Man, that's great. Congratulations to her. That's a big accomplishment. She's studying for the bar, you said?
Yeah, bar exam. It's been a grind, man. I am not smart enough to do that, so props to her, because I'm just like, sure. I'll be out here streaming.
Yeah.
We got Tyler Emo Cowboy in here with the sexy profile picture. He switched it up, and then Fantasy Dog, you're gonna lose anyways. Yeah, I mean, that's notedly been said a lot. Okay, so we still have, if you guys want to get in,
great mentality. Like, I mean, honestly, like, more people will be better served thinking through that. Like, and also just like, you're not going to be right on every pick. Like, even the teams that win have some bad picks in there. Like, you go look at I mean, again, I always talk about this, but that I always wind up going back to the team that scored the most regular season points, because that's the roster I looked at the most. But they had some bad picks on that team that won the $1 million regular season prize. I didn't look at the BBM champion as closely as I should have, but they presumably did too. I remember looking at Karane's lineup quite a bit, and like, yeah, I know Tyquan Thornton hit his lineup the final week, but Tyquan Thornton was on that freaking roster. Like, I mean, he was carrying him along the whole year. You're gonna miss picks. Like, I think people think you have to have an 18-round perfect draft, and they're trying to be too perfect with every single pick. You have to lean into the upside and the downside and be willing to have some misses. And then, yeah, like, most of your teams are going to lose. But if you take that mentality over a portfolio, you're going to have a couple teams where you stack enough of the upside, the hits on the same roster, and suddenly you have a contender. I mean, you're in there. I was
going to say that El Coach finished 15th in BBM last year, and he just sent me right before this his roster from that team, and he had what? It was Evan Hull, Rashad Penny, and who was the third one? I can pull it up in a second.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally three completely dead roster spots. Guys that either barely played or like were injured for the whole season, and he finished 15th. So
I had a lot of those Rashad Penny honorable round 10 picks.
I was so gassed up for the resurgence, and that was so painful.
But I mean, that's a great example of, I think that's the right type of swing. He's a guy who had shown so much efficiency, and there's a reason that we thought that in the Eagles offense with that run blocking, with the Jalen Hurts effect helping the running back efficiency, this dude was averaging 6 yards per carry in his last few seasons in Seattle. Maybe, I know for me, maybe I should have been a little bit more concerned about people saying basically, and some of the reporting saying that he just wasn't back from that major injury the year prior. But his last 2 years in Seattle, he averaged 6+ yards per carry, man. Like, I'm going to get gassed up. I'm sorry. For his career, he's still a 5.6 yards per carry rusher. I mean,
Insane. And he would just take over those games. Yeah, 150 plus yards, like just and the story wasn't that hard to tell with the Eagles offense. Like, dude was going to have looks that he never had in Seattle. Like,
and you're
getting him into double-digit rounds. Like, come on.
Right. And that's a great example of one of those ones where after the fact, people are like, you guys weren't paying any attention to the beat reports saying that he was 3rd on the depth chart. And I'm like, yeah, no, I saw those, or he was 4th on the depth chart. Like, I saw those. I just didn't believe it was logical that he would be that low, or like I wanted to bet on contingency upside or what have you. And I mean, obviously it didn't play out particularly well, and it looks really bad when you miss on that kind of a swing in hindsight. But I will stand by the Rashad Penny pick last year is the type of miss that also gets you on hits. And I think it's a great example that he was on your 15th place team. You're obviously drafting the right way. I mean, in my opinion.
And I mean, he did contribute. I think I got like 1.8 points from him at some point during the season. So like, it wasn't in vain. Like he made it, he contributed. So he's good. Like, he's good.
So I think we got Steph is in here. I know she was on a stream today with Neil Orfield. So go check that out.
Super shorty.
And then we got Archie Adams in here at the 11 spot. And I'm not sure if anyone else is in here with us. So I think Rackham Willie, I definitely recognize. I don't know who that is, but I definitely recognize them. So we might have to utilize the private chat or keep our cards close to the vest here. So, okay, we are 1 pick away.
Got a couple more here in the chat. One, the 2-hole, the 6-hole.
Which Nick is this? Because there's so many Nicks, I get very confused. We got BSP in here at the 6-hole. Okay, so we got a full room, so we gotta be careful.
Right.
Okay, so Gretch, Puka or Garrett Wilson here? Do you have a lean or?
I actually tend to rank Garrett Wilson higher, but I'm very comfortable with both picks. Puka actually is like really nice to stack up from the late spots, like throughout the draft. Like plays really well with Trey McBride, obviously, and I mean you can do the Cup thing. I don't love to stack him with Cup, but I've been taking a little bit of Puka. My first drafts, I was taking Garrett Wilson over Puka, but it's like if I'm doing that, I'm never going to draft Puka, and I don't want to not draft Puka. You know what I mean? So. I like that.
I want to be like pretty much at the field at both. Like I don't want to take a super strong stand because I definitely see the upside case for both. Like Puka, obviously, it's been talked about ad nauseum, but just like you got to bet on the guy with the best rookie season ever for a wide receiver, right? Like you just got to do it. You can't be out even if there is some question marks. And then Garrett Wilson, I just
Nico at 112.
Nico at 112. Okay.
Up.
Nico in London. Okay. Maybe. I think they're probably going to try to build out a Houston, Baltimore thing. Okay. So Gibbs does fall to us. I'm not sure how you feel about Gibbs. Let's just take the value.
I mean, there's a little bit of a uniqueness factor probably too. And there's going to be plenty of Puka Gibbs teams, but I mean, I think it's pretty flat. I probably would put Gibbs more into this tier, but I think it's pretty flat from here all the way through. I don't think there's any like strong argument for Taylor over him or strong argument for Olave over him. This is the tier starts right in this range and it goes into like the mid third. It's the really flat second round and early third round this year. But yeah, I mean, I think if you get the ADP value, you just
take it. Yeah. Okay, so we do have a Detroit clip, so I'm going to rip it really quick.
You can't mess with, I'm a Detroit player. Stacking my paper. Stacking so high, I need a fucking elevator. I'm a deep boy. I'm a deep boy.
Yeah. What up, Big Shot?
The wonders of AI.
That is amazing. I loved that.
We have some other good ones, but it's like it's really bad because I found myself I want to take the players that I have the clips for, which I'm sure you're familiar with as well.
Oh, yeah.
Except
I've never done that before on chasing.
The problem is my clips are not for like 18th to 15th round players. They're for like the first 5 rounds. So not great. Probably not great for my exposures. But I guess if there's players I like, I'll just make more clips. So there we go.
Speaking of clips, do you have a GIF ready for our first tight end selection? Are we able to do that or no?
A GIF ready? Yeah, I have
the GIF.
I do have one if he makes it to us. Yeah.
Okay. I love it.
So yeah, we were talking about with Pete. that you can kind of like make an argument against any one of these second round guys. Like you said, it's just one big tier. So who do you find yourself kind of like gravitating towards, or like who are your guys in kind of like the second round or 2-3 turn range?
Well, and I wrote an article about it actually in the pre-draft period, but I said round 2 is the way that I framed it was I said round 2 is the most important round in drafts. That was right when I first started drafting my first set of. So I titled it round 2 is a bit of a wasteland, and then the subhead was which makes it a key to drafts right now. And I think it is a key because, like you were just saying, like who are the guys you like because you can poke holes in all the profiles. But I think most drafters, I mean, maybe some people will be really good at diversifying across the whole round, but most drafters are going to wind up gravitating towards a couple of people. They're going to be fairly heavy on a few, and maybe even profiles they don't necessarily love because the alternatives are tricky. I have taken a lot of Chris Olave. I've taken a decent amount of Devontae Adams. I think those guys both still. I mean, they were so strong at earning volume last year that I still feel really good about them. In the back half of the second round, I often pull Jalen Waddle. He's now kind of going there consistently, but I've been pulling him in there, and Malik Neighbors in there as well. I'm comfortable with. Oh, look at Saquon finally starting to fall. He's all the way down at 23 in this draft. It's nice to see, actually. I'm getting sick of just seeing him at the top of the ADP list for the whole second round. Like
I was gonna say, I finally ended up taking him with Neil Orfield on a stream the other day, and I was like, even then, people were still like fucking with me in the chat for taking him that late. I think it was like 23 or where he went in this draft. I'm like, I don't love Saquon, but that seems okay, right? It's not like it's not great, but it's fine.
I've taken him late too, also. But yeah, I mean, I think structurally too. It's tricky because I do want to get receivers, but I want to get exposure to Achane. I want to get some exposure to Kyren Williams. I am not really in on the FUD there. McVay's always leaned on one back. I think they had to add a running back. I wrote about it in the pre-draft period that I expected them to add a running back. I wasn't drafting Kyren in the pre-draft period. He was going early second because I expected people to react once they drafted a back. I think the market's overreacted. Kyren is. I mean, look, he's fallen so far in this draft as well now.
Yeah, I just think it's like Corum is like purely a contingent back.
Play.
He's not gonna. And there was a little bit of the ankle. I think it was ankle injury news for Kyren, but then it's like, okay, he's back on the field and like completely fine. And the market hasn't fully baked that in yet to bring him back up. So
I think Steph just timed out and got her second back.
She just timed out.
Yeah. I think so because she went down to 0 and Kyren. She already had Brees. I wondered if she'd pass on Kyren because she already had him.
Okay, so we're gonna be up here in a second. I haven't been. We both of us, El Coach and I, haven't been taking a lot of Laporta just because of the opportunity cost of the later elite tight ends. I'm fine going there if you want to. But do you have any like Pittman or Tank Dell or anyone else here?
Zay Flowers already went too. Good Lord.
Yeah.
It's not Pittman for me. It would be all the way down to Higgins.
Okay.
Because we have Gibbs, I'd probably just take Laporta. I haven't been taking a lot of him either, but in this particular room, let's take Higgins.
Right on.
I changed my mind.
It's so tough to take Laporta, right? Like,
right.
It's just so tough.
And after Higgins goes, and Pittman, I presume, will go on this turn, this is a little bit of a wide receiver avalanche. The Pickens-Amari group on the way back was going to be really tough to dip into for me. If Laporta goes, that's fine. We can go to Kelsey. We can go to Trey McBride, who correlates with Puka. We have options at tight end. The disaster turn here would have been if we had to go into like George Pickens at 403. I would not have been happy personally.
Yeah,
any player on an Arthur Smith offense. We were just talking about how you have to analyze every team independently. Arthur Smith's the team that I don't want anything.
You're like, hell no.
Dude, did you hear the thing? Like when they asked him about the wide receiver 2 today, and he just gave a 1 minute, said
insane.
Nothing.
Yeah.
All right, what do you want to do? You want to go Kelsey?
I feel like we go McBride or Kelsey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm comfortable either way. If you guys prefer Kelsey, McBride does correlate with Puka.
I was going to say, I think I lean McBride, honestly. I think McBride is my tight end 1 just overall.
That's where I'm at. He's a stud. I mean, Kelsey's a stud too still, and I think is probably undervalued in the spot. But McBride had a monster year last year that's going a little bit under the radar. He didn't run a ton of routes early in the year, but when you look at his per route stuff, he came on hard late. his yards per route run is actually significantly better than Sam Laporta's. And he has less competition. I know Marvin Harrison's there now, but it's two guys. There's not, I mean,
what do you make
Laporta's
of
dealing
Ertz
with
kind of blocking him out like that? It's so weird, right?
It really is weird. The fact that here's what I don't want to do is I don't want to overcount him taking some time to develop when we talk about rookie tight ends being a slower developing position all the time. And we're constantly saying, like, don't expect the rookie tight end to do amazing things. Laporta was the outlier, and it was awesome to see that from Laporta. But we're constantly saying, like, rookie tight ends don't hit usually. It takes a couple of years. And so if this guy, has a tough first year and then doesn't earn the job early in year 2, but then by the end of year 2, as a guy who had a really good production profile in college, was a good tight end prospect coming out. He's big, he's fast, he was a producer, and he was reasonably young coming out. And he wasn't good early, but by his second season, he comes on. It's like, that's what we always tell people to know about tight ends. It takes them a little bit of time to learn the position. So I don't want to the Ertz thing is the reason that you can, I would still have Laporta higher in Dynasty because I'm more confident in the Laporta floor because he came right in and he immediately produced. But in terms of 2024 ceiling, I think that sets up better for McBride. I also do think the Ertz thing gives a little bit of floor, I guess, where maybe that's the weird risk with McBride, where there's not that risk with Laporta. But I mean, the fact that he was so dominant down the stretch last year, and anyone who was watching a lot of Cardinals games, I mean, I watch all the games, he looked like freaking prime Gronk. I've given this take before. He was catching balls with after the catch, anger, tossing DBs and getting open, but also, winning contested catches. His targets per out run was better than Laporta's. His yards per target was better than Laporta's. His yards per out run was significantly better than Laporta's because those are the two things that go into it. That doesn't mean Laporta's bad. It just means that McBride was a lot better than I think he gets credit for. And I mean, I know Harrison's there, but I think there's plenty of room for two main targets. I think Detroit's more crowded than that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm pretty stoked on McBride.
I'm pretty all in as well. In Dynasty too, I've been trying to, I think I'm up to 19%. But it's just, and especially, I don't know, Gretch, you I know you play Dynasty, but how many leagues are you actually in? Because I'm actually interested
I'm only in 5. I don't do a ton of Dynasty. Nice. I stopped joining startups it got to be too much. It's man, I can't. I play a lot of redraft, and I play in the high stakes and the main event and everything, and okay. I like to be in the best ball Dynasty streets, and I have some best ball leagues, but I kind of got rid of all the ones where I had to actually manage them in season. It's just too much.
Yeah, I've already doxed myself, but I'm in 45 Dynasty leagues, and I'm reaching the point where I'm it's going to be very interesting. So it's I'm actually, I think I'm doing a Dynasty auction for the first time with Steph very soon.
Steph just stole Xavier Worthy.
We're up, fellas.
Yeah. Okay. Will you click the wide receiver tab real quick? And
Yep.
Jaden Reed's there at the top.
Yeah.
I don't even like Jaden Reed particularly well, but this is a wide receiver avalanche kind of room, and I think he fits this.
Yep.
We got to get the wide receiver through when we had the early running back and the early tight end.
Yep, and it gives us some outs to Jordan Love. We have a different couple different outs for quarterbacks, so that feels pretty good. We got to catch up at wide receiver. But this is a solid 3 through 5 rounds, right? I feel pretty good, and we have an RB that can give us 30-point weeks and a tight end that can be the tight end 1. So that feels really good.
I mean, we just got Reed behind ADP in a room where, I mean, it feels like it's getting pretty wiped out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I guess that round right there wasn't super wide receiver heavy, but man, I don't know. 4th round wasn't either, but I'm glad to get Reed there. I do think it's kind of a drop off in this range. Reed's a guy we know will have a role. We think Green Bay's offense is going to be pretty solid. Brian Thomas at the 6-1. This guy at the turn living a little. He's the same dude.
Living a little. Yeah. Okay, so we have. Do you have a preferred guy in this range in terms of wide receiver? Ridley, Godwin, any of these guys? Why don't we tab to wide receiver and see?
So it would be a Dunze for me here. I would take the upside swing. I think I feel stable enough with the Nakua Higgins Reed stuff. I know people are concerned about a Dunze, the floor part of it, but I really like the profile. I think he has plenty of spike week potential, and I think he has more full season upside than people realize. I don't think it's the same situation as JSN last year where he's the third receiver in a Shane Waldron offense, so he's going to be boxed out. He plays a completely different position than JSN. He's a true X outside guy. Keenan Allen getting up there in age, has had some injuries. I think Odunze is going to be out there, and maybe even in 2 receiver sets, and Keenan Allen is just out there for the slot stuff. But probably Keenan Allen in the beginning of the year is playing in the 2 receiver sets with DJ Moore. But I don't know, man. I think Odunze, especially if there's any kind of injury to a Keenan Allen or DJ Moore, has a lot of ceiling down the stretch, but could just grow into big playing. They drafted him in the top 10. Like they obviously are in on him too. It's a good price.
Since we're talking about, UW players drafted in the top 10, can we get any pro Penix content from you, please? Yes.
No, unfortunately, I'm pretty anti Penix.
No.
I don't think Penix is actually that great, unfortunately.
Yes, I love this.
Wow.
What are you a Falcons fan, or what's your
I'm not. I'm a Colts fan.
He's just all in on Penix.
Yeah, give me left-handed quarterbacks, and
Okay.
I have a sick affliction for them. I don't know. Like I enjoy watching Penix. I loved him when he was with Indiana. Loved watching what he did with Washington as well. So
he was a fun guy to watch for sure. But I do think the offense covered up some of his flaws, and a lot of the people that have charted him have said the same thing. Like his accuracy is not as good as people think it is, or at least people talk about it like it is. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I have a bet with one of my UW buddies where I'm unfortunately kind of betting against him because he's like really confident that people missed how good Penix is. The whole, the NFL taking him top 10 is, is the true indicative, factor the NFL knows. And so anyway,
they
we'll
never
find
mess
out.
up top 10 picks, so it's
No.
fine. Like, yeah.
Never. It's never happened.
This is, we're getting back into the wide receiver. So Rashee Rice goes 70 in this room, which is up above his ADP.
Jesus
JSN
Christ.
goes 73, which is where I take him, but it's not where anyone else seems to take him.
Yeah, I'm not used to these rooms. Like I feel like normally our rooms, like we'll have a few people, like whatever, it's maybe like half chat at most, but this seems very, very wide receiver heavy. So I'm glad we took the receivers we did. Penix, I don't know. I think it's also like he had Roma Dunes, he had McMillan, and he had Jalen Polk, all 3 guys that got drafted this year, and it's just like I think that also plays into it as well, where it's like those are pretty good receivers to have. They can kind of boost up your profile a little bit.
Two tackles that both got drafted in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. He was really poor when under pressure, but didn't have to play under pressure a lot last year. Like he ran a surprisingly super fast 40 time.
Yeah,
which
that was
surprising
that
to
was
me
really
too,
weird.
because he never
nuts.
ran in college. Yeah, he ran like Jalen Hurts 40 time. Josh Allen, like he's like, but he doesn't actually use his legs because he doesn't even step into hits, man. Like he's afraid to, I shouldn't say afraid, but he protects his body.
Yeah.
And will throw underneath. Hayden Winks had an interesting stat about how like not all sacks are created equal. And his point was 3rd and 4th down sacks, quarterbacks are intentionally trying to extend plays sometimes because the sack doesn't kill you in that spot. It's way different than a 1st down sack, which kills you. You should throw that ball away. 3rd and 4th down sacks, less, you should be trying to extend that play. Yeah. And then he used Penix as an example. He's like looking in the college level. Penix on 3rd and 4th down situations last year when pressured, when the defense, got a pressure, we didn't gain a 1st down once, UW, all season. He would just throw underneath. Yeah, Kyler's a great pick here. I love that. Sorry, we're on the clock.
Yeah.
If you guys are in on that, you started right there.
We do have Higgins. We do have Higgins, so we could go Burrow, but I prefer Kyler straight up.
I do too. I like Kyler. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Hell yeah, that played out very well.
Yeah. I mean, hell, we could go Kyler Burrow at this turn though.
If he makes it back to us. Because
2 QBs here.
Yeah, the opportunity cost too. Like there's so many running backs here. We already have our anchor, so I'm fine pushing it. Wide receiver in this range, I don't love. I'd rather just take. I know Jacob Sanderson is all in on Wicks, Downs, and Leggett, and I find myself taking a lot of Downs and Leggett. And Wicks has jumped the shark a little bit for me with his ADP going up so much, but it's like I almost prefer those guys than kind of like the Mike Williams and Tyler Lockett tier.
I like those receivers, but this is really the pocket for me in most of my builds where I'm building out running back. There's and this through like the 12th round, through Kendre Miller and Marshawn Lloyd. I'm 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm taking QBs in this range too. Often my tight end too, Brock Bowers would have been an option as well. He goes really high here though at 86.
Yeah, that's really high. Do we want to just go Burrow and just be done at quarterback? I kind of like it.
That's what I would do. I love it. Because then it also gives you a bring back. This is a wide receiver heavy draft. I don't want to be drafting a wide receiver here, but bring back options with Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims later, who are both, I think viable. There's not a lot of viable late round receivers. Those guys I think are both draftable late round receivers. They correlate with Burrow. I mean, it's nice to just get QB out of the way.
Yeah.
Ron Stewart says, my favorite Gretch take is Penix is a giant pussy under pressure.
So to finish that point, he threw, so it was like 15 times where he was pressured on 3rd and 4th downs, and he threw short of the sticks every time, and he completed a lot of those passes, but we never got a first down on any of them. And it's like, why didn't you ever try to extend the play on a single one of these? Like,
dude, can I tell you how heartbreaking this is? Like, for me, like I just feel like I just shoved my hand into a bear trap. Like, this is your parents telling you why you shouldn't be hanging out with that friend because he's no good. Like, this is bad.
No,
this is right now.
I'm gonna go further with it. The other thing that was so frustrating, I went to both the semifinal and the national championship, but the national championship was really disheartening. Michigan does a really good job of disguising coverages. We were just talking about how the NFL teams are doing this, and Penix just didn't have answers. He was just taking the underneath throws constantly. He missed a wide open 4th down throw to Roma Dunze in the first half. He missed a wide open Devin Culp streaking up the seam when the safeties like showed that they were in the box, and then they both turned their hips and split. It was a 3rd and long, 3rd and 8, and he immediately threw underneath, and we had to kick a field goal early in the second half when we absolutely needed a touchdown. He did like that type of thing, threw short of the sticks multiple times. And he did a similar thing. It's not just the Michigan game. The other game he played really poorly. It was his lowest graded PFF game of his college career or his career at Washington in the national championship against the most pro style defense that he faced. That's the concern. Like that the scheme was helping him beat Pac-12 offenses that did what Sean McVay was talking about, did what they were supposed to do. And then you can scheme around that and you can beat them because you have a good, offensive coaching staff. But when you face a Jim Harbaugh defense and they're doing some really creative stuff defensively, the quarterback can't elevate, right? Like that becomes a problem with the stuff. The other team that did that was Arizona State, who was like 1-7 and came into Washington and would have upset us. They were beating us 7-6 in the 4th quarter, and they were driving. And we got an 80-something yard pick 6 to keep our undefeated season alive. We did not score an offensive touchdown in that game. It was an entire game of them just bringing double A gap pressure, like what's his face used to do. I always forget his name. John Johnson, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. John Johnson in the early 2000s loved the double A gap pressure. Would used to always bring those blitzes. Arizona State did it the whole freaking game to us, and we couldn't stop it. We weren't doing a good job of picking up the blitzes, but Penix was just like, and then they were doing some other stuff to obviously confuse him, but he was just like completely lost, and it was like couldn't snap out of it. You're at home against a 1-7 team, and you don't even score an offensive touchdown the whole game. We ended up winning because of a pick 6. Otherwise, we would have that would have been the end of the national championship season right there, or the runner-up season. So anyway, those are the 2 games where he actually faced team defenses doing some pretty creative stuff with their play calling and didn't have answers. And that's the other part of it where you go, well, that's what he's going to face every week in the NFL. These guys are a lot more organized at the NFL level. They do a lot more stuff after the snap at the NFL level. Pretty concerned about that part of it too.
They're a lot more talented than Arizona State. Is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
I'm super excited for these clips to be used against me when I put them on the trade block in like a year or 2. So this is great. Thank you.
YouTube short is coming, so I can pull that up in a year when he throws 3 pick 6s. So get ready.
Absolutely weaponized. That's great.
I drafted Penix in a best ball dynasty league where it's just like he fell so far and it's a rebuild, and it's like, hopefully he holds his value and I can trade him at some point.
Yeah,
he's a quarterback.
Once he reaches like mid-second round, which he has been falling, it's like you kind of got to take him just for the value. That's
where I got him at 205, I think. But yeah, I mean,
that's the breaking point right there.
That's what I like so much about, like, you're getting a future first. It feels like in the mid-second round, I guess.
Right.
That's my cope. That's what we're going with.
And I could be wrong. Quarterback evaluation is the hardest thing in the world. People love to ask me about it. I like to talk about it. I watched all of his games. I'm a huge UW fan. I went to a bunch of them, right? I went to the national championship and the semifinal. And I would love to be really in on Penix, but there are fans of UW, like I said, that believe he's really good and that I'm wrong. And I maybe will be wrong. So, like, that's perfectly, perfectly plausible. Javonte's a bring back as well. And
I was going to say Javonte makes sense here because, and actually that goes along with I wanted to ask you about Javonte. That was one of the uncertain situations we wanted to ask you about.
You guys want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because it's like why don't you make the case for him? Because I don't want to. You will say it much better than I will. So.
Well, I think people are really worried that he's not going to be like a 70% running back, and I don't think he's going to be, and I don't think he needs to be. Sean Payton's always used a lot of different backs, but they led the NFL in running back targets last year, 153. The receiving game stuff is so huge for running backs. And then Bo Nix that's what he does. Like, he was such a perfect fit for Payton. And once you know that Payton wanted him so bad and was able to get him, they might challenge, like they led the league with 153 running back targets last year. They might challenge for 200, which they did in some of those Saints years. I really think the question is not whether they'll be top 5 in running back targets. It's whether they will run away from everyone. And that will be like a massive, like in terms of like the expected points models, that will be massive for how valuable the Denver backfield is. Javonte, I think, is the 3-down profile of this group. Yes, Jaleel McLaughlin's like a slasher and is explosive player. We all love him. Yes, they have, those interesting rookies. Audric Estime didn't catch a lot of balls in college. Anyway, we're back up. But
what do you guys want to do here?
We got Singletary. We don't have any bringbacks. We have Tennessee, Tyjae Spears. Chase Brown goes with our Bengals thing, so we could do that as well.
Let's do that. I mean, Singletary is a good pick too, but we already have Gibbs and Javonte. Chase Brown's my favorite upside running back, I think, in this range. He's underpriced. He should be going ahead of Spears. Spears is the one. They were going back-to-back for a while. Spears is the one that started a distance a little bit, and I think that's backwards. I think it should be Chase Brown. And when you have Gibbs as the anchor, and then you also get the Javonte Williams, I think pretty stable volume. The thing about Javonte is he was really inefficient last year, but Peyton just had a comment the other day where he was talking about it takes often until year 2 for these guys to get all the way back with the knee stuff. And it's like, I mean, that's all I need to hear. Like, I don't think he's out on Javonte. I've heard some other analysts that do think that. But man, if he just gets like at a 50% lead role, and they're going to work other backs in. Peyton's always done committees like his whole career. But I do think Raphael's right. Like, Peyton doesn't talk about Javonte much, but there's other ways to think about that. Like, maybe they're just like setting aside their lead back and they're talking about the competition behind him. Because if you go look at the snap shares and everything else, Javonte was the one who played consistently all year last year. He had 264 touches. Jaleel McLaughlin and Pirine both had about 100. They combined for 210, 54 touches less than Javonte. Like, I mean, Javonte was the guy, the 50% guy, and the other two were 25% guys. Like, that's how the pie's split up. The beat expecting less than 50% Javonte load is worrisome. Yeah, I think that's referencing the Benjamin Albright tweet where he said 45%, and I think he said 40% Estime and like 15% Jaleel was his estimate. And that's like, to me, that's like a little bit higher on Estime than we'd want. But Estime would probably be sort of the bruiser, the old like Mark Ingram.
Grinder,
yeah. Kyrie Robinson. Like, Sean Payton's always had a guy like that back in the day. Chris Ivory. He had a ton of Mike Bell originally. A ton of those dudes back with the Saints. He always had like this grinder. That's what Estime would be. And so if he's getting 45 or 40% of the touches, but it's loaded to the early down stuff in plus scripts and all of that, I'm okay with that. Javonte, I want the receiving. And I think Javonte's like, he's going to be the 3-down dude, especially if Pirine gets cut, because that's the guy who played on long down distance. But if that becomes Javonte's work too, dude might catch 100 balls this year. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. At pick 106 in what's probably the most valuable for fantasy point backfield, just because of all the passing. I mean, I understand he's like people have been saying they're a bottom 10 offense. I understand they're not going to be good, but they're going to throw to the running back so goddamn much.
They have check down king Bo Nix. They have the king of check down. So I mean, that plays into it even more.
So anyway, I'm obviously like maybe too high on Javonte. Everyone else seems to be concerned, and I'm like the one guy that's like, I want to smash him at 106 every chance I get.
I mean, it goes back to what you're saying of just like shooting for the upside. Like if he does kind of command more of the targets and take on that passing down role, and the other guys are just kind of whatever taking some of the not I don't know what I can't think of the term, but like just like not doesn't matter like the early down
The
and
low
just,
value
like,
touches, yeah,
low
between
value
the nice
touches,
rushes, yeah.
Exactly. Then like yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think Samaje Perine had like 56 catches last year, which is like pretty crazy. So I think yeah, there's so much upside in the passing game. So I've been like okay taking Javonte just because of the downside risk, but I think that is a very 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 compelling case by you, Gretch.
And and then we took Chase Brown just to talk about him for a sec. I mean, he's a guy who only got 53 touches last year. Juice McCaffrey just cracked me up there. A little bit PG-13. He only got like 53 touches last year. I think we're all probably a little too confident that the Bengals love him, but the reporting has been that he's going to be their number 2. It's reminiscent to me of Jerome Ford, who didn't do anything in his year 1, and then last offseason the Browns kind of told us all offseason like he's our number 2. Jerome Ford's our number 2. We're telling you he's our number 2. Like please listen to us. And drafters didn't really care. If he's the number 2 for the Bengals and Zach Moss is the number 1, like Zach Moss was efficient last year with the Colts, but he didn't look explosive watching him. Like he had some big plays. They opened up some good holes for him on some of his longer runs last year. I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but Chase Brown, I think a more dynamic player, the younger, wider range of outcomes player in a good offense. Again, we're just talking about got to be willing to take the Rashad Penny miss. I think Chase Brown's the perfect example of that, where I think the upside is big, especially when you've already bet on the Burrow offense. We've already done Burrow and T. Higgins on this team. I loved adding Chase Brown.
That's that's getting the Javonte bring back and Chase Brown as right like that the upside shot that feels really good. Okay, we're gonna be up here in a second. Let's just go through a couple chats. We got just hit 600 subs, so thanks to all you guys for the support. It's been a crazy ride so far. We got 53 people in here. Caleb, I just did a stream with him last night. Really good Dynasty and Redraft channel, and now he's diving into best ball, so go check him out. And now we are back on the clock.
What do we have at running back? I actually just like in this range want to keep hitting running back. So it's not Chubb or Elliott. For me, it would be Charbonnet, Rico, but this is where I actually am just comfortable going to Kendre Miller and Marshawn Lloyd, who are my 2 favorite running. They should be going ahead of Nick Chubb right now. Kendre Miller was a 21-year-old rookie last year, dealt with injuries, and was out for most of the year. But they didn't add anything. And Jamal Williams had 2.9 yards per carry last year, guys. And Alvin Kamara is like 29. Kendre Miller might just be like very much in their plans right now. Like, oh, yeah, we kind of had to redshirt his age 21 season, but he's a do-everything back that we took on day 2 and we really like. He's still here on our roster. It wouldn't surprise me if he's the guy who plays 50% of the snaps in week 1 and is like what Kyron Williams last year, you're like, oh shit, this guy's actually like really involved in their plans. I don't think people realize that Kendre Miller could be like the dude. Like, I mean, obviously Kamara is going to be the main guy, but he also was inefficient as a runner last year. There goes Marshawn Lloyd. Our wild card at 12 took him. I wanted to get him on the way back.
Do you think the scheme changes benefit Kendre a lot with the new OC they're bringing in?
You know what? I haven't dug into that enough. I don't think I could give you a well-informed answer on that. I haven't dug into the whole Kubiak thing at all, really.
Okay, so what? I feel like we're a little bit behind at wide receiver because we only have 4 so far. I like Polk here, I'm smashing Polk here.
Sure.
Tyler, don't come at me in the chat for saying smash another guy like you're at for Gretch, but because that's another thing we wanted to ask you is just kind of how do you feel about the New England offense as a whole, and are you in on Polk, and like what are your thoughts from him? You said you watched all the games. What's your Polk take?
Well, my Polk take, I actually really loved watching Polk. He was my favorite player. Like, honestly, Dunze was probably my favorite player, but Polk was the low key one that like whenever he did something cool, I was always excited about it. And like my buddies would be like, "Oh, Gretch, Polk did something again." Like he was like whatever, he was my guy. I loved this dude from the beginning of the year. Didn't really do a ton last year, and McMillan was a lot better. If you look at like the per route metrics and things like that, McMillan was a lot better in 2022 than Polk was in 2023. So McMillan was hurt in 2023, and it was kind of the 2 receivers both years, where it was a Dunze and McMillan in 2022 and then a Dunze and Polk in 2023. But even McMillan's per route stuff in 2023 on the limited number of routes, because he was banged up, was solid. And really both of his, his per route seasons are significantly better than Polk's. And it's a little surprising to me that Polk wound up as the like clear 2. I think it's because he's more of a prototypical X receiver. He's a bigger, more physical guy. He's like a higher ADOT player, wins contested catches, can do stuff after the catch, physical. It's a bad comp because this guy's a really great player, but he's in the AJ Brown mold. Like, he's a downfield, big physical player. And like, it's fun to watch. That's why I enjoyed watching him at UW so much. He was my guy. McMillan is this like pretty scrawny, but not slot only player. He can win downfield. I kind of compare him to Will Fuller because he's a little unreliable on the hands too, which is kind of the Will Fuller trait. But I do think McMillan in the numbers earned more, volume per route and some of those things, probably a better route runner overall. I think he's a little bit underrated because he's a smaller dude and he does nothing after the catch. He will not break a tackle. Like, you could bring him down by blowing on him. He had 2 plays in the national championship where if he could have just broken an arm tackle on a short out pattern, could have run forever and like got tackled by literally like one arm on his thigh and he goes down. So like, he's a little bit maddening as a fan. I was not as high on him, but I do think he's probably the better prospect when I dig into the numbers and those things. But look, again, I've been wrong on a lot of this stuff. Polk had to compete with a Dunze who I think is really legit, and McMillan. And the draft capital is meaningful, right? The Patriots took him in the early 2nd round. Like, they went out, they got him early. I think Drake May's a good prospect. As soon as he starts playing, I think we're going to be, looking at a pretty fun Patriots offense. I'm a little worried they're going to play Brissett more than they should, because they're already like saying stuff like it's not a great setup for a rookie quarterback to step into. And that's the kind of stuff that you're like,
a little scary.
Yeah. Like, they don't think they've done enough to build around him, whatever. But if he steps in, he'll be a vertical passer. He was a high ADOT guy. He's willing to push it downfield. That's where Polk wins. I think you'll have some splash weeks and those types of things. I'm just, I guess, a little bit worried about Polk from like a dynasty lens, from a full season lens, that he never really earned a ton of volume. It wasn't until his final season, like those late producers tend to be a little bit of a red flag. Wasn't until his final season that he had like a really strong year. And even that was just like a ton of routes that he ran. It wasn't like his target sprout run, not that great. Like, some of that stuff is a little concerning for me.
So we're coming up on the clock. We're at 2-4-5-1 build so far. What are you guys thinking?
I would have loved Jermaine Burton, but Steph just had to ruin that for us.
Yeah.
Did we take anybody in that Minnesota Green Bay game? Because Musgrave would be my tight end 2 here, and one of the last ones that I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Did we end up getting we didn't take Addison, did we?
We didn't take Addison.
Addison.
So we could just do another.
Oh, we got Jaden Reed. So we do kind of have like a bet on the Green Bay. I mean,
we could do that, or I'm fine pushing tight end 2. I don't know if we like. How do you feel about Roman Wilson? You said not in on him, so let's go Musgrave.
I like to get an ADP discount on Wilson. I have taken him a couple times. I think he's probably a little undervalued, but I like to take him at like pick 160. I could take him at 159, 5 picks after ADP if he comes around.
Okay, yeah, let's see.
He went the very next pick.
That's fine. We can push him.
This is also this is still a good running back spot. I know. I mean, like, look, we are thin at receiver, but we're strong everywhere else, and I'm comfortable going Kamani Vidal here as a bring back on Jalen Polk. He's one of my favorite running back picks in this range as well. So
we do have Gibson for the Polk thing, but yeah, let's go Vidal.
But yeah, I mean, Gibson works, but Vidal's the bigger swing. I'm not sold on Gus Edwards. The reports on J.K. Dobbins are favorable, but
yeah.
Well, they've been like, they're talking about like he's healthy, but he's a guy who's coming back from an Achilles and has had so many other like major injuries that I'm like, we're probably not going to see the best of J.K. Dobbins this year 1 after an Achilles. Vidal, they've been saying favorable things about Vidal as well, and I mean, this is a dude that like, it wouldn't like, if there have been the last couple years 6th round, 7th round UDFA running backs that have actually had pretty big volume in the first season of their career. It's not just like 1 or 2. I don't have all the names right on top of my head.
James Robinson pops up. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Alfred Morris was the original one. But there's like if you go look at like, I'll just go to last year and I'm going to go to the day 3 backs really quick. And like, Starting in round 4, like Roshan Johnson didn't play a ton. Chase Brown didn't really play. Okay, so last year's not a good one. The year before had Tyler Algier, who did a lot as a rookie, and we kind of knew that was the spot. Like if somebody landed in Atlanta. And my point is that NFL teams, because they're not drafting running backs high anymore, only 3 went before day 3. Only 3 went in rounds 2 and 3, right? None in round 1. They're waiting to draft running backs. They know that they're more replaceable, but they also see day 3 running backs as potential immediate producers, right? I really think that's like a thing that has changed in the NFL recently, that people aren't really on as quick enough as they should be. Algier was a round 5 guy that year. Zamir White was a round 4 guy who is now, being given the backfield. Damian Pierce was a round 4 guy that year who was an immediate producer as a rookie. Kyron Williams is a round 5 guy, obviously didn't play in year 1, but mostly due to injury, and they were saying favorable things, and then they backed that up in year 2. Ty Chandler's a round 5 guy that was in their plans in Minnesota by year 2. Isaiah Pacheco was a round 7 guy that year who had obviously a monster rookie season as a round 7 dude. I mean, teams like that's a bunch of day 3 guys that we never used to have that many day 3. Oh, Jerome Ford is a round 5 guy from that class. This is just 2 years ago. I just named 7 guys that have, by year 2, have been pretty big parts of their backfield. I don't think, like, just because Vidal was a round 6 pick, like, yeah, he could be a total 0. I don't think it's like a guarantee that he's going to be a total 0. And the situation is very favorable. They're going to run a lot. Like, they have Justin Herbert, so defenses are going to have to respect that. But, like, Jim Harbaugh is going to want to run the football. It's if you get a young running back running behind, in this offense, in this scheme, in this round, that's the big swing play. I don't mind the Antonio Gibson pick, but I want to take the Kamani Vidal swing, like, pretty much on every roster is what it comes down to.
How hard do you think they're going to throttle down the Herbo passing attempts in that offense? Like, the run pass splits, like, how extreme do you think it's going to get?
I definitely think it's going to come down. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know how extreme it's going to get. And I think we want to be open to uncertainty on that kind of stuff, because I think we get too confident in our takes sometimes. And so I have played into the pass game stuff as well. Like, nobody, like, McConkey goes like 8th round. Josh Palmer, I think, is a decent value. I draft some of him. Quentin Johnson goes like in the 13th round. I actually don't tend to draft him, but I in the late rounds end up taking a little bit of DJ Chark every now and then. Yeah, I mean, I'm still just like, Quentin Johnson's one I'm not going to get over. I took a lot of him last year. It wasn't good. But like DJ Chark late, like, I mean, like, you still have Justin Herbert. And if we're wrong at all on the pass volume, maybe they're just bad and they have to throw in the second halves of games. I don't know. But people reference that Harbaugh's offenses have never really been pass heavy, but he also had like Colin Kaepernick, and he had Alex Smith, and he had some quarterback styles that were like, he was doing some different stuff with the run game and the deep, like, he had really good defenses with the 49ers those years. I'm not like super confident they're going to be bottom 5. I do think they're a good bet to be bottom 5 though. Like, it's not great.
I gotta say, I love naming a semi-controversial player and saying I don't tend to draft him like immediately after that. I love that, and I appreciate it. That's good.
I'm like wildly concerned about anything that has to do with Quentin Johnson.
I don't think I've taken Quentin Johnson a single time. I'm being completely honest.
So the running back that I actually have taken, I've taken a lot of Vidal, but the running back I've taken more than anyone. My highest exposure player right now is Bucky Irving, who's sliding to us, guys. We might have to throw an RB6 on it if he somehow makes it down to us. Tyrone Tracy goes ahead of him too. I don't get it, man. He's getting like good camp reports already. He's incredibly okay. Let's not talk about him. It's over. Ruined my night.
Okay, who do we want to go here? Javon Baker for the New England thing,
or Zay Jones as another.
We have another. Okay, yeah.
Let's go Luke McCaffrey. I would just go Luke McCaffrey. I know he's not stacked, but this is a spot where like we still need players, and I think McCaffrey it could be a player. Okay. I think the Zay Jones is a correlation piece. Demarcus Robinson's one that I really like too. I actually think Robinson over Jones. He's a bring back on that game. But they run so much 11 personnel. They love his run blocking. They gave him $4 million this offseason to bring him back. I think he's going to play a ton. Okay, he went one pick behind me. I think he's going to play a ton. He had some usable weeks down the stretch last year, 5 straight games of 12 plus half PPR points. That was because he scored in 4 of them. But like he's going to have 5 or 6 usable games this year, which is more than a lot of the receivers that we could take in week 16 or in round 16 are probably going to actually offer us. But Zay Jones, I think, is going to correlate here nice too.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say he's Demarcus Robinson kind of in the OBJ role that he was in a couple of years ago before he tore the Super Bowl year. Just catching touchdowns left and right. Yeah.
And people are like, he's not good. And I'm like, I know, but he run blocks. And they need their receivers to run block because they don't substitute. So the defense can't substitute. Let's take Zay. I think you guys are good with that, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Just add that into the stack. We need a little bit of a veteran. We got some upside swings, some rookies in there, and so I like to get a guy that like you figure can run some routes. Like I feel more confident in Demarcus Robinson actually running routes and being out there and potentially giving you some like usable weeks if Adunze, Polk, McCaffrey aren't like always hitting. The rookies can be zeros for stretches of their rookie season. Sometimes if they're Quentin Johnson for the entire rookie season, right? Like that's the concern. They're big. They're wide range players, but. Yeah, I mean, Zay Jones, I think, will probably play a lot. It depends on if, like, Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, and like, it could be Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Marvin Harrison, and Zay Jones is, like, not in the 3 receiver sets. And then that would not be great.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a Michael Wilson guy, so I tend to lean Zay Jones, but that's also just my take lock from just not thinking Michael Wilson is good. So,
right.
Let's see.
That's the thing. Is like, yeah, we think he sucks, but do the Cardinals think he sucks? Like, that's the part.
I think the Cardinals might actually like him, so maybe that's a thorn in my side. Okay, what else do we got here? If Samuel can thrive with Bieniemy, Luke can thrive with. I mean, I don't know. It's completely different coaching staff. I don't know if that really plays into anything for me,
but there was something about McCaffrey. This is why I'm like, I really wanted to grab him. There was something about him taking hand. Roto-World had a tweet today that he's been taking handoffs during minicamp, and I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, it's not. I shouldn't care,
super
but
versatile.
I care.
Yeah.
He played quarterback, but he actually so for a guy who transitioned to receiver, he actually had solid targets per out run in his couple years. I think it was at Rice or wherever he wound up. It's not like it was high competition level, but he did. And then he's super athletic, which you'd expect, obviously, with the family. But he is basically a clone of Christian McCaffrey. Like he's super fast, great. Agility numbers, which that's what you want out of your slot receiver, is a dude that's like really good in short spaces. I mean, we've seen guys with this profile go on to be productive slot receivers at the NFL that were former QBs and had to sort of figure out how to play the position late, but they have the intuition. This obviously got football in his background. He's been, around football his entire life. 58 catches, 71 catches the last 2 years at Rice, like was a productive player. 19 total touchdowns over those 2 seasons. Yeah, again, low level of college, but it's reminiscent. Like Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college, and then at a lower level, and then was able to translate that athleticism to another position, to slot receiver specifically. Antoine Randall, you go way back, another guy who did that. I mean, it's helpful to have the football IQ when you have to run those option routes, and then the biggest thing for a slot receiver is, do you have the agility? And he smashed the agility testing. I think Luke McCaffrey's probably going to be a good NFL slot receiver. Like, it's just a question of like, is he only Hunter Renfrow, or can he be like Julian Edelman type of statistical ceiling? Can he really do a lot?
Hell yeah. Okay. Well, I haven't been drafting that much Luke McCaffrey, but that's a very good case. And yeah, Steph says I heard his brother is a good running back. So yeah, that's always
that guy's pretty good. It's a good name to have on your roster, if nothing else.
Yeah, we just hit 600 subs, but make sure you guys smash the like. If you guys want to, sometimes I do impromptu streams, so if you want to turn on the bell, definitely do that. And then leaving a comment after the stream helps out the algo a ton. So if you guys want to do that, definitely do that as well. Okay, we are back up. We don't need a quarterback. Right?
No, we're good at QB.
Yeah, I was going to say
2572 is where we're at so far.
Yeah, you probably want to click that wide receiver tab.
I was going to say,
I
think
this is not it. We got to start throwing more names on this.
Oh, DJ Chark, and let's Rackham Willie.
Yeah, I'd throw DJ Chark on here. We need to throw on some more receivers. We could even throw Greg Dortch on with the Zay Jones thing. I mean,
I thought the Alex.
You guys want to go Chark?
Coming out. Yeah, let's go Chark. Yep.
If you guys are into it, I think so. We've got a little bit of a LAC New England game thing going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's a good pick at this cost, especially with that correlation. Okay, so Gretch, what other receivers? You said Dortch. Is there anyone else that you're kind of scrolling?
Nick
you have
is
down
going
for?
through it in the chats. He wanted Gino. He's having a tough time. He's one pick before him. He's doing the Alex Jones thing right now. What were you saying? Dortch? I mean, I don't know that like it has to be
We
Dortch
need
or
it.
anything. Yeah, but
It's not Short King Summer.
it's kind of. I mean, it could be. I guess my concern is like we already put some eggs in the Zay basket. Like, how many eggs are we gonna put into like the bad Arizona Cardinals wide receiver basket?
What about Yoshivas for the Bengals?
Ooh, let's do it.
Yeah,
I like that.
I take it.
We didn't do the Burton thing. Maybe Burton's not right. We do have Higgins, and Yoshivas is like kind of feels like a playoff. Like if Higgins misses time or something, they're kind of similar. But I like this dude. I like throwing him on here.
Yoshi.
You guys want to do
let's do it? Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Love it.
I think this is a good 2-5-9. I think our 5 running backs are strong. When you start with Gibbs, you get Javonte, Chase Brown, Kendra Miller, Vidal. Like that's I'm really comfortable stopping at 5 there. So just to throw some extra receiver, depth
volume
onto this
yeah.
build, you kind of need it.
He caught like 5 touchdowns last year. And then I don't know if you know this, Gretch, but I did in February of last year. I made a Andre Yoshivas clip and I sent it to Peter Overzat, and he used it like once or twice on stream. So I'm gonna rip it because we have it in the Rolodex.
Let's do it.
Don't take Yoshi often, so we gotta rip it.
What is everyone talking about right now? Oh, Cevis is Andre. All right, Princeton. Is he a track athlete? What is this? Okay, all right. Men's track and field. Versatile skill set here. All-time school. #1 all-time in school history in the heptathlon. Okay, all right. I'm intrigued.
Love it.
I was gonna say, I think we've only played that a
Love
couple
it.
times. It used to be my intro when I first started streaming a long time ago, but love to rip out that.
I've never seen that clip of Pete working through it. I will say my Stealing Bananas co-host Sean Siegel was really into Yoshivas last year before he even played for the Bengals, before he was even drafted. He told me about him as a guy he was intrigued by out of Princeton because of the athleticism, because of some of like some underrated stuff in his profile, small school stuff. He wasn't getting a lot of credit for it. He gets, the 6th round draft capital, I think it was. Not great, but like I was keeping an eye on him after that point because Sean has a good track record with these like random dudes and like being absolutely right about them. And so the fact that he's like, I mean, of all the 6th round picks in the league, he's the one that I pay more attention to because I'm like, I mean, Siegel's good at picking out these prospects out of these small schools, man. He's somebody to pay attention to.
He's crazy athletic. Yeah, he's crazy athletic. I forget. I can check it. I can pull it up now. But he had like a 2 touchdown game. I mean, I know it's like very just like up in the air if he's even going to play. But if he gets on the field, I think he definitely is decent. So let's see what else.
Yeah,
He's featured on
92%
PC.
snaps in the final game of the year with the 2 touchdown game. He played 72% a couple weeks prior to that. I do think, I mean, with the addition of Burton, he's probably the 4th receiver, but maybe he rotates in enough, I mean,
Just need 1
Tyler
week
Boyd's
with
gone.
Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, Boyd's gone at least. So in the 3 receiver sets last year, you had Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. Now you have Chase, Higgins, and a rookie. And so it's like, I mean, maybe he rotates in more because of that.
Hopefully it's not Charlie Jones. Let's hope.
yeah.
Okay.
Trenton Irwin. It's good.
Trenton Irwin, yeah,
Irwin,
dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's run through the squad really quick. Coach, you wanna run us through really quick?
Yeah, fellas. At QB, we've got Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. Running back, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Javonte Williams, Chase Brown, Kendra Miller, Kamani Vidal. Wide receiver, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Jaden Reed, Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Luke McCaffrey, Zay Jones, DJ Chark, and Andre Yoshivas. And tight end, we've got Trey McBride and Luke Musgrave. A fun squad.
This team fucks.
It's coming.
Okay, so but I know we're reaching our hour and a half, but we do have 2 more questions for you before you get out of here, Gretch, and we
Sure.
appreciate your time. What is your all-time favorite draft pick of any fantasy league ever?
My favorite draft pick in any fantasy league ever. Oh man.
Something that sticks with you in your brain. That's
Yeah,
just like,
sure.
This guy
There's a
stands
lot
out.
of ways to define that. My longest running home league, we started when we were kids. I was 12 in 1999. I didn't win the title, and I was the commish of it for years. I didn't win the title until 2013, and I had Jamal Charles in the first round that year when he did the monster semifinal thing. And I mean, that football right there is actually, my league gave it to me. They all signed it. They're like, yeah, you're gonna win you'll win the title one of these years. I kept getting like runner up. I've told the story on the pod. Like, I used to swing for small wins. I was doing the median projection stuff, and then you learn. I actually won back to back after I won the first year with Jamal Charles. The other answer would be Odell Beckham, because I drafted him the next year in 2014, his rookie year, and I didn't have the best team, but he put up 3 TDs on my brother in the semifinals. My brother still talks about that. He had the best team that year, and I went on to win again that year. And that's when I really learned the lesson about ceiling. It's like, you get a rookie that does that kind of thing, it'll change the way you think about fantasy football. But then, like, if you talk about like the player that I just have like the weird little soft spot in my heart for, I'll go back to Houston Texans running back Dominic Davis / Dominic Williams. He changed his name. That guy was sick for like 3 years. We used to play PPR back in those days. Not a lot of people did. He caught a lot of passes. He was a fun ass running back. I had him like all 3 years of his career. He fell off like immediately. Like, he was out of the league by like 27. But if you go look at his Pro Football Reference page, I mean, he had like 2 really good seasons and then a bad third season, then was like done. But a fun ass player that I've always had a soft spot for.
Nice. And then Coach has one more final question for you before we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's summer. And speaking of soft spots in our hearts, how do you feel about Joey Chestnut being banned from the July 4th Nathan's hot dog eating contest?
I mean, it's a travesty. I don't know what they're thinking. How could you not have Joey Chestnut in the hot dog eating contest? I've watched that like maybe twice in my life, but I'm definitely not watching it this year. Like, they're going to get the worst ratings they've ever got. Do you think that's going to help your ratings? Because he got some, like, he's the biggest name in the history of any of whatever, that a sport, like whatever it is,
competitive eating or whatever it is. Yeah.
The fact that he had a conflicting sponsor, like, he waited this long to agree to a sponsorship with someone else. Like, this dude has been carrying your whole event for 15 years. Like, of course he's going to have sponsorship deals. He's the only one who matters. It's like banning Caitlin Clark because she signed a shoe deal or something. Like, I mean, come on. This is Joey Chestnut we're talking about.
The real question is when is competitive eating getting into Omni Fantasy? That's the real question everyone wants to know.
I don't know enough about it. I got to dig into it.
Thanks so much for hopping on, Gretch. Always appreciate hearing your long-winded takes. We appreciate you. And we're not a hater in the chat, but thank you so much for hopping on with us. Any closing thoughts for us before we let you get to your family?
No, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. The long-winded thing. Look, I mean, I got one speed. People like it or they don't like it, but I'm gonna keep going the same speed.
Coach, anything before we head out of here? Love the shirt once again.
Thanks, man. No, this was a blast. Thanks again for coming on, Gretch. It was great to have you on here. Super fun drafting a team with you, and just like everything, the knowledge share, all of that info. Like, it's incredible to see it happen live. I love it, man. Thank you so much.
We got Jewish McCaffrey saying banning Joey Chestnut from the hot dog contest. We like banning Crack Rock from Twitter, a void that no one else can fill. That's right. Yeah. What's your question, Coach? One last.
Go for it. No, we're on the same wavelength here. Go for it.
No, I forget the full question, so you go.
So the Crack Rock stream you guys did with ship chasing last year, just lives rent free in my head, and I have the visual of him hitting the 2 vape pens at the same time, just cranking purple. Like, are you guys getting him back on this summer? Is it going to happen?
Oh, we've done drafts with him for 3 or 4 years in a row now. Yeah, I imagine we'll do another Crack Rock draft. He was gonna come to Vegas. We all get together, the ship chasing crew for the FFPC, main events. And then like last minute kind of bailed, and he's a tendency to say he's going to do stuff, and then last minute kind of bail. He's got a little bit of a reputation as a flake with Crack Rock. That's what Steph's referring to here. Very dependable, that one. But hopefully we get him out to Vegas too. I'd love to meet him in person. We've been talking for years about like hanging out in person. I can't imagine what it would be like to get drunk with Crack Rock. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
cannot imagine.
The stories you'll tell your grandchildren after meeting them will be next level. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hopping on with us. We have 2 streams tomorrow. We have Super Stack Bros at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then I'm going on with Billy Jones from Spike Week. So yeah, we're gonna keep pumping out the streams. Appreciate you guys for getting me to 600. It's been a really wild ride so far. So yeah, appreciate every one of you that tunes in. And Gretch, thanks so much for hopping on, buddy.
For sure. Thanks for having me. And everybody go like, subscribe, get that number up to 1,000, man.
1,000 by the season. We're going to get there. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
We'll be right back.